Hello, friends, and welcome. I've tweeted out the space. Just want to shout out and say hello to everyone that's filtering in the room. Astro Baby, looking forward to connecting with you soon. And of course, our dear friend Jana Stern is in the house. Great to see you, friend. Hello, Jai T. Let's see, the mompreneur. Nice to see you as well. I'm going to follow you back. And hey, Daisy the Jack and Sydney. Nice to see you all. I hope you're all having an amazing day. I personally cannot wait to dig into this conversation. I have to know, Sierra, were the peens part of your business plan all along? I'll give you a minute.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. No, they were not on our roadmap, but once they popped up, I just couldn't put them down. Good question. Abby is asking about our crystal carvings that are in the shape of a phallus or a penis. She's asking if they were on our business plan. They were not.
That's part of what we'll get into is how even the most well-laid plans, right? We have them, and then we have to sometimes think on our feet or adjust to what the way our business is going. But I know that's one of your best sellers, and they're freaking awesome, I have to say. But yeah, I'm so excited to dig into this. You let me know when you're ready. Oh, hey, Nyla, I see you popping into the room as well. Oh, Juju, you're here too. Ha ha ha. We're both here. Um, yeah, I'm so excited.
I think we can get into it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I see some familiar faces and PFDs. Thank you for coming back for another week of Mindful Business. Before we start, I do want to announce that we have started uploading these to YouTube. So if for any reason you have a conflict, you can't make it, you have work, whatever it may be, you'll be able to go on our YouTube and listen back to these at any point. So we just added our first episode, which at this point was about a month ago that we recorded that one live. And over the course of the next week, we'll be adding episodes 2, 3, and 4 to YouTube as well. So we're super excited about that. I posted a link to that a bit earlier if you want to check it out. All right, folks, let's talk about business planning. Business planning. I'm tongue tied today. Today, we're going to talk about all of the steps that you take ideally before you take your business so that you can start your business feeling prepared, having all the information you need, thinking about your finances, thinking about your demographic that you're targeting, and all of these great things. So we're going to talk a bit about what's included in a business plan. We're going to talk a bit about some business planning resources, different places that you can go to get free information to create your own business plan. And we're also going to talk just about some of our tips and tricks and things that we've learned personally from creating our own business plans. Maybe I'll let you kick it off today, Abby. I feel like I always kick it off and start our discussion, but we're going to swap today and I'm going to let you get us started.
Well, I'm always flexible and I always love the way you kick things off and get it started. And I know we touched base a little bit today. I feel like this is something that a lot of folks overlook in general. I think when people are inspired to start a business, um, I don't know that everyone really thinks about how important and crucial it is to write a business plan. And, I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years and I have found that it was crucial. Yes, there are going to be things that maybe don't go according to plan, which I know we're going to talk about, but having, as you said, a bit of a roadmap before you begin and really taking the time to think out all of these different elements of the business plan. I will point out, and I know Sierra's got kind of written down and is going to go over really what those pieces are, but you don't have to write that down or remember. I want to point you to some resources that were invaluable to me that have templates for writing a business plan. And before I even say that, I want to say I don't think that people in the NFT scene always think about an NFT project as a business, but it is. When you are doing anything to create income and commerce for yourself, you're creating a small business, even if it's just yourself. And so having a business plan is really going to help you manage your stress and help you think about things that you don't want to think about. That's kind of the deal. I want to say that a place for a template, three big places you could go to for free information. And I'm going to guess there's probably a million more out there now. These were all really helpful to me in the last 20 years or so. But SCORE is the number one place that I can recommend. SCORE, it was, I think they've changed it, but it started off as a nonprofit in the 60s. And it was an acronym, SCORE, for Service Corps of Retired Executives. It's a nonprofit that provides free and confidential business mentoring services to whether you are just getting started, like you want to open a new business or a new project, or you're already established as a business and you want to make some changes, make some expansions, whatever it might be. SCORE is a wonderful, wonderful invaluable, I should say, resource that has mentors that will literally take their time. They're volunteers, but they will take their time to go through parts of your business plan if you have questions about it, and really help direct you into the right resources. And they have templates for writing out the business plan. Also, SBA, the Small Business Association, has a gazillion different things, including business planning templates. And surprisingly, American Express. I hate to say this, I don't use the credit card, and it took me a long time to accept it in my business because their rates tend to be higher for processing. However, they have a wonderful small business kind of toolkit that exists on their sites that really can help you walk through all of these things. And I'm going to tell you before I pass it over, I feel like I'm talking a lot. What I'd love to get into, and I don't know about you, Sierra, but the things that I see overlooked again and again when I see other folks who've come to me for advice on opening a business and then go ahead and do it, the thing that I see overlooked all the time is barriers to entry. You should be really honest with yourself. And it can be hard to be honest with ourselves. So it's really useful to have someone that you consult with. And that might be SCORE, or it might be a grumpy business partner. It might be someone that has a different perspective than you. And it's not to be negative, it's to really be honest about what are your barriers to entry. And if you can come up with good arguments to get through all of those barriers to entry, then you can start to move forward with the rest of your plan. But I think that's the number one. The other thing I want to point out before handing the ball back over is please pause, take a look around, and see if there's a need and a niche for what you're doing. I think we are so driven by emotion and we have this great idea and we're so excited that we don't always look around and see, oh, my neighbor or my very good friend is already got this covered, right? If you want to do the same thing, how can you do it in a way that doesn't directly compete and water down the market? How can you add to what's already happening out there and not take away from the work someone else has done? And then give yourself an advantage, really, looking at what the needs of the community might be before you enter into this business venture. What are your thoughts, Sierra? What do you feel like when you think about all the big pieces of the plan? What do you think are the things that people overlook, or maybe were even challenges for you?
Oh my God, you just dropped so many gems in like that quick 5 minutes you just spent talking. Holy cow. For anyone who missed, like, we just got some resources, just got some helpful tips in there. I love that you mentioned SBA. For anyone who's unaware, there is probably a regional or district office within half an hour of where you live. I believe it's like a federal program, but there's most states have their own little sub offices, and essentially the SBA's entire mission is just to help small businesses succeed. My previous business before this one, I had actually had the pleasure of going into an SBA office in person and sitting down with this super patient, lovely woman who spent time handcrafting my business plan with me. I got to make a few appointments to do that. So I would highly recommend the SBA if you need help sitting down with someone to really get into the nitty gritty of your business plan. I love, love, love that you mentioned, is there a need? Is there a need for what you're doing? Good Juju is actually the third business that I've created. I've been an entrepreneur for 6 years. My first business was my consulting firm, which still exists today. And I use sometimes to offer consulting related to e commerce or product development to other entrepreneurs. But before Good Juju, I created a vegan and natural skincare brand, which I have since stopped and dissolved, and I no longer create or sell the products. But I love that you mentioned, is there a need? Because this is a scenario where I was so excited. I wanted to make these products. I had these awesome designs and labels and awesome formulas and ingredients. And once I spent all of this time and money getting this product ready for market, it dawned on me that there wasn't really a need for this product. While many of us might think that vegan and natural products are a niche, in this last decade or so, they've become very mainstream. And lots of big brands that are much better funded and much better connected offer products like this. And it was just a really saturated, really competitive market that I could not get my products noticed in, and ultimately resulted in me deciding to just kind of give up on the adventure because I drove myself into a lot of debt and not making any money from it. So that was a scenario where I wish I asked myself as a part of my business plan, like, is there a need for this? Is this necessary? And I think that kind of also just jogs my brain on just thinking about market analysis and how important it is when you're making a business plan to have a really good understanding of your industry that you're operating within and your target market. And it's so important to do that competitive research to show you what other businesses are doing and what their strengths are, to look for trends and themes, see what your competitors are doing successfully and why it's working. Is there a way for you to do that better? And if there's not, it doesn't mean that your hopes and dreams are crushed. You might just have to go back to the drawing board and just think a bit more about your value proposition and your differentiator, because these things are so important when you're creating a business. How are you adding value to your consumer or customer's life? What are you offering that they cannot find somewhere else? And for some businesses, their entire value proposition is that we're the cheapest. And I really urge you to not make this your value proposition unless you have the means, unless you're a Walmart and you can afford to be the cheapest, or a Dollar Tree. Don't set out to be the least costly option in your field, is one point I'll make, unless you have the bandwidth. What do you think about that, Abby?
I think that is an excellent point, and I think being honest about these things and with yourself makes all the difference. And as you said, the research. We hear market research and we hear some of these terms that are listed in a business plan, and I think some people maybe feel overwhelmed or feel like, oh, that sounds technical or difficult. But it really isn't. It's really a matter of taking time to slow down and notice what the heck is going on in the market, in the community, and adjusting accordingly. I think it's invaluable to be honest about those things. And I didn't know about the skincare line, but see, that's such a great example. I hate that was you had to go through. I kind of have to go through things the hard way sometimes myself to really learn a thing. But yeah, that's a really stunning example of just taking the steps that are laid out for us you know in these well laid plans, the business plan templates. It really does make you pause and think about stuff you wouldn't normally think about when you're feeling that excitement, that emotional. You have to have that, right? We have to have the passion and the idea first, but all of these steps really do set you up for success, because the thing is, as you pointed out, you went through all the work and the expense, and then these things come up anyway. So the more we can try to think ahead and look to people who have that experience ahead of us, like SCORE, like the business plan templates, SBA. The more we can refer to these things that are kind of tried and true, we can lay a better roadmap for ourselves. If we can think about the challenges ahead of time, we'll have some sort of toolkit to manage those challenges as they come up. Now, as we've kind of alluded to in the beginning, the best, most well laid plans, right, don't always go according to plan. Sometimes you make a plan and the universe says, ha ha ha, right? Yeah. And things come up. But if you go through the process ahead of time, oftentimes there's going to be more than one solution in your toolkit. And when you have these resources like working with other businesses, consultants, the SBA, whatever it might be, you can get through those things a little bit easier. But yeah, I think thinking ahead makes all the difference in the world.
Beautifully said. I feel like some of us get so excited to just start our thing that we jump into it without doing all of the strategizing and planning. And we figure, like, oh, I'm passionate and I have the startup funds and it'll work itself out for me. And sometimes it does, but I don't know what the statistic is, but it's a huge percentage of small businesses, unfortunately, don't even make it through their first 12 months operating. It is a tough world out there. We are deep into pandemic. We are deep into high inflation. It's a tough market. So the more strategizing you do, the better, which brings me to mention marketing and sales. Marketing and sales is usually a big part of a business plan. It is important to mention there is no single way to approach a marketing strategy. Depending on what you're selling and who you're selling it to, really defines that. For example, for the longest time, I kind of completely avoided TikTok. I felt like I was too old for it. I felt like I couldn't figure it out. I don't have the attention span to flick through all these videos. Does anyone care? I'm already on Instagram, or I'm already on Twitter. I'm already on YouTube. Do I need to have this other thing? But it just became more and more apparent to me over time that although my marketing plan or my business plan didn't account for the new invention that has spawned this last few years, that is TikTok, it was really important for me to adjust and to get on TikTok because my demographic, which I've discovered are women between the age of about 18 and 40, which is a pretty broad group. A lot of those women on the younger end of that spectrum are spending a huge amount of time on TikTok. So even though it might not be something I personally love or is a passion of mine, I had to evolve and change to fit the needs of my business. So when you're thinking about marketing and sales, you're thinking about how you attract and retain your customers. It goes beyond what's most easy and convenient for you. I've learned the hard way. And you also want to think about, how is a sale going to happen? Like, what is the flow that your potential customer has to go through to get to that final action that you want them to take, whether it's buy a product, buy a service, a course, book an appointment, whatever it is. What actions do they need to take to get there? And how many barriers, like Gabby mentioned, could be prohibiting that process and not making it smooth? So, just some thoughts on marketing and sales, and curious what you have to add related to marketing and sales. As I've seen, you've done so much grassroots spreading of information for your own project, Abby.
I have to say that when I wrote my first business plan for my first brick and mortar business, small business owners wear a lot of hats, as you know, right? And we tend to go in, at least for me, I went in as a service provider. I knew what service I was providing. I knew I was really good at it. I had a little bit of an established clientele from working in a day spa. And my business partner, who's really focused on budgeting, sometimes it can be hard to see the benefit of marketing and advertising to a budget guy because they don't always see it as a direct form of income, right? Like, you're providing a service, you get the income. Marketing and advertising can feel like an extra expense to people that don't realize the absolute value of it. And so I think sometimes a small business owner will walk into this and write their business plan or come up with an abbreviated version of a business plan and really underestimate how much value there is in making sure you have a budget for marketing and advertising every single month. And you can be creative with it. It takes some planning. I'm very into grassroots because I've been I've been fighting that budget guy for 20 years. So I've had to be creative with some of those things, but you cannot overlook the importance of marketing and advertising and writing that into your plan. Because here's the deal: you could have the crystals in the whole wide world. You could give the best yoga class or massage ever to be given, but no one will know that if you don't market what you're doing. No one will know if you don't go out there and toot your own horn and tell people why they should invest their time and money in whatever it is you've got to offer. We tend to be, a little, what's the word? I don't know, shy or bashful about, tooting our own horn. And that's what marketing, I think, can feel like to some people. So there's where you hire a professional. There's where you hire help out. If it's not your jam, it happens to be something I dig. So I've always been, the social media manager and marketing guru for my own business. But yeah, it really, if that's not something you're skillful in, make sure you plan on investing in someone that can help you with that, or no one will ever know to come and buy your stuff, right?
So true. So true. It's like you're just talking not even to a wall. It's like you're talking to an echo chamber. you're just you're talking at something and your words are just bouncing back at you when you haven't properly invested in marketing and different sales tactics. So I totally second that, and I feel like that is a good segue to kind of talk a bit about financial planning and financial projections. I feel like a lot of us don't factor in the cost associated with our marketing, and then we kind of struggle to have any funds left over for that. And this just reminds me to mention, like, there are good times and there are bad times. No business is immune to the larger market or what's happening in the world, or algorithms changing. For example, there was a time where we could run a Facebook ad and I could get 3 times my ROI, meaning if I spent $500 on a Facebook ad, I could be pretty sure that I would get back about $1,500 in sales. No more. That has changed. Facebook has changed. I don't know if it's their algorithm or they are now protecting a lot more data, probably because they were on the verge of getting into legal trouble for using their users' data to sell to ad agencies to determine who's the best person to show an ad to. That being said, now if I run a Facebook ad, so this that was maybe a year and a half ago. Now if I run a Facebook ad, I am lucky if I break even. I'm lucky if I get the $500 I spent on the ad back in returns. And that is just something that's beyond my control. I have no control over who Facebook shows those ads to, who the government says they can show the ads to, what data they can collect, and how they use that to show ads. That's completely beyond every business owner's control. And for that reason, you have to kind of adapt. So when I saw that Facebook wasn't working out that well for me, I was like, okay, maybe it's time to do more text message marketing, or maybe it's time to have a better cadence with my email marketing. So, in terms of financial projections, when you're working on your business plan, there is usually a component of it that basically where you're trying to convince the person who's reading it that your business is stable and that it will be financially successful. If you're creating a business plan for a business that's already established, which happens sometimes we got to go backwards and go back to the drawing board. This is a good place to include your income statements or any balance sheets or cash flow statements for the last however long you have them for. This is a good place to consider any collateral that you could put against a loan should you need to take one out. And this is a good place to like really think realistically about the outlook over the next few years and really dig into forecasting your income, your expenditures on a monthly basis, and be specific, like dig down into quarterly and monthly projections. Like it's tedious. It's time consuming. It's not something you're going to whip up in a few minutes. But I promise you that spending the time to do this will pay off in the long run. I wish I did this. I wish I didn't wait until I had a year and a half into my business and all these different recurring monthly expenses, the Shopify app, the ads we're running, our inventory, our digital marketing manager, our graphic designer. I wish that I accounted for these things sooner rather than slowly letting these expenses pile up over the course of a year and a half and then suddenly wonder, why am I in the red every month? It's like, girl, because you didn't consider you didn't consider these expenses. How do you feel in terms of financial projections and what we can do to ensure that we're entering our business on sound financial footing, Abby?
I think you brought up so many important things. And I think, again, we tend to underestimate. We tend to go in with rose colored glasses. We don't always either want to acknowledge or sometimes literally just don't think about all the tiny little things that add up. As you said, you start tacking on this service and credit card processing fees, for example. We never in the beginning imagined how fucking expensive it would be to take someone's credit card, right? Just that alone. Payroll expenses, if you have a staff, all those things do creep up on you. And instead of trying to avoid that, it makes a world of difference to think about and plan ahead and be over exaggerative with it. Because the more you plan and kind of cushion in, it's kind of like overpromise and underdeliver. Like the more you kind of pad that, the less stressful it is. And then it's like, oh, I didn't need that much. Yay me. But the instead of managing by crisis, which I think some of us tend to do in life, with things like this, especially with financial planning and thinking about stability, and flexibility in the long run, which are terms I use in yoga a lot, but in my life as well. We want that perfect marriage and balance of flexibility and stability. And I think that is really part of why business planning and financial planning and projecting is crucial. You have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes we can't be. And that's where teamwork can be really helpful. Having someone you trust that you can talk to about the realities of these things and have honest and compassionate conversations so that you can be realistic. I think that really does make all the difference. I wanted to say too, I wrote it down because I wanted to go back to it. When you talked about marketing changes over the years, I kind of giggled because that's definitely been the case for me. I've been in business so dang long that it used to be print ads, in the beginning, and print ads were so expensive. I guess all advertising is, but it blew me away because we went in thinking we wouldn't have to do that. But print ads were the thing. Like that's how I drove that top of mind awareness and that brand recognition in the very beginning. And the thing about some customers and clients, especially in maybe a conservative area like I kind of tend to live in, folks will look at your advertising sometimes for a year or 2 years before they finally feel that call to action to come in and buy your service or your product. And so consistency, persistence with your marketing and advertising is huge. We started with print ads until they didn't work anymore. Everyone started going online and I loved Facebook advertising for many years. It was, as you said, really such an invaluable resource, but it has also changed again and it is no longer what it used to be in terms of getting that return on your investment. So I just wanted to backtrack a slight bit and say, being flexible with those plans is also really important. But yes, to cap off the end part of that, forecasting, all of it really is don't manage by crisis. Plan ahead. As boring as it sounds, it's a lifesaver.
Manage by crisis. I love that terminology. That's definitely something I'm trying to do less of. My goodness. Be consistent, be persistent. That's kind of what this is boiling down to. And also, Like, I feel like we've both alluded to this, but you kind of have to be ready to ride the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. Anyone in this space right now who's a business owner knows that the lows can get low. And by that, I mean there will be months where people are knocking down the doors and you can't keep up with the interest in the orders. And oh my God, I'm so busy. Then there will be weeks where it's just crickets and you're wondering, does anyone remember that I have this business? Does anyone does anyone care about what I'm doing here? And this is normal. And I say this is normal because it's impossible unless you have an ad spend where you can be number one on Google for every search every day. It's impossible to be at the forefront of people's minds 24/7. Some of us have businesses, especially those of us who sell products that are more seasonal in nature, depending on what the product is. I know for me, we're entering Q4, and as holiday time comes, it starts to ramp up because people are looking to buy crystals as Christmas gifts and such. So you kind of will learn the more time you spend in business when your busy time is, and you'll learn how to keep yourself occupied during the not so busy times. That brings me to my next point, which is related to organization and management. So, another part of your business plan really dives into explaining how your company is going to be structured, who's going to run your company. And by structured, I mean, what is the legal structure going to be? Is it going to be an LLC? Is it going to be an S Corp or a C Corp? Or are you going to be a sole proprietor? Any of these things could make sense depending on what it is you're selling and who you're selling it to. But I urge you to take the time to create an organizational chart. And this is something that I wish I did sooner. Most small business owners, out of necessity, like Abby said, end up wearing multiple hats. You end up doing damn near everything. As someone whose business is now officially 4 years old and who has really truly burned myself out the first 2 years doing everything on my own. Only as of this last year and a half or so have I loosened up the reins and started outsourcing different things so I can specialize and focus. So consider creating an organizational chart to lay out who's in charge of what. And it might not be possible out of the gate. Like you might not have the business and the funding to be able to have a small team of 3 4 people out of the gate, but this is something that you plan for and you work towards, and it kind of just keeps you, it also kind of help you to understand how different people and their own unique experiences can contribute to your venture. It's like it's impossible for you to have all the answers. It's impossible for you to be good at everything. I see this a lot in NFTs because a lot of NFT artists are extremely creative. I mean, they're artists, like, of course, like creativity is in your blood. But then when it comes time to like pricing their artwork or creating their website or like managing a collaboration, they start to kind of break down or get confused or start to struggle because it's not in their nature. It's a bit foreign to them. So don't feel, while most of us feel like we do have to wear all the hats, don't feel like you need to do that forever, and start thinking about it sooner rather than later, how you can delegate and kind of farm out different tasks so you're not the only person doing every single thing. I feel like you can relate to this one, Abby.
I definitely can. And I think you make a good point that it might not be where you begin, but have the plan to get there. One of my earliest jobs as a in the wellness industry, I worked at a day spa, and I remember someone saying, that the goal of the owner or the manager should be to be behind that chair less and less as the years go on, and to be, more in the front of the house and more, operating the system, managing the business rather than always being the customer service person, always being the service provider. And that really struck with me long ago, and I've tried to keep that in mind. I think it can be a challenge to find that balance when you start your business. Often you are the primary, whatever it is, service provider or main person bringing in that direct income. But I think it is crucial for longevity and sustainability of your business to make sure you're working to get to that point where you can begin to delegate and outsource, because your energy and your time, those are precious, valuable resources. Your time equals money. And you'll get to a point when you are depending on, it really doesn't even matter what you're doing, but when you elevate to a place in your career, in your business, where your time becomes more valuable, it's more valuable to your business that you spend your time taking care of your books, forecasting your projected income, things of this nature, and then grooming your team and your cohorts to support this thing you've got in motion, so that you're a doctor. I used to work on a doctor. He told me the same thing once, because I used to try to do every single thing to save money. I thought I was going to save money by doing all the things. And he told me once, I used to work on him twice a day for many years, at 7 in the morning and back again at 7 at night. And he said, you'll wear yourself ragged doing that. And he finally got to the place where he realized, of course, I wasn't making $300 an hour like he was, but he's like, I make $300 an hour. If I'm also mowing the lawn and I'm also doing the office, right, then I'm taking away from what I can bring in that hour. I have to realize that, oh, I know where my skills are. I know where I can maximize my potential for profit, and I can pay someone to do these other things to lighten my load and make it all work really well. So yes, we may not start there, but I think working towards that is really the key to sustainability in the long run, right?
Absolutely. And a huge part of this is releasing your perfectionist tendencies. I know for me, that was a huge barrier in delegating different tasks in my business. Honestly, a lot of times it was like, well, I like it done this way, and this is the way I do it. And then I'm going to have to spend time showing someone else the way that I like it done, or dealing with the fact that they might do it slightly differently from the way that I like it. So it's been a weighing of these things where now I used to be the person who is writing all of our social media captions and writing our blog posts and creating our marketing materials to post on social media. And finally, I spent 1 week where I just recorded all the time that I spent doing this. And it was, oh my God, it was several hours a day. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work anymore. So I outsourced it, and thank God, my younger cousin, a family member, decided to volunteer as an intern to help me out. This is something else I'm kind of going to go off track here, but like, please lean on your friends and family. Obviously, like, don't make your relationships weird by like burdening people with things they aren't interested in doing or don't have the capacity to do. But if you see an overlap, like for example, my younger cousin went to school for creative writing, and she was like, "Oh, I'd like to write blog posts." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like there's some synergy. Like this might work." So like if you have someone in your network or in your family or in your friend group who is willing to volunteer their time and energy towards your cause, like please take advantage of it, because they're gaining experience, firsthand experience and wisdom, and you're gaining having someone else who can help you do these things you don't need to be doing. So that aside, kind of boiled down to now, it's like, okay, I kind of have to, not that I have to settle with it being okay, not how I would do it, but it's helped me not be so much of a perfectionist, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, there's only so many ways that you can describe a product in a caption. And while I might have used a different noun or adjective, she's still getting the point across. The post is still going up. They're going up every day. And I need to be happy with that and not be such a nitpicker that I don't let anyone help me because I need it to look a certain way. So that's just a sidebar in terms of like, get out of your own way if you're a perfectionist. Release your perfectionist tendencies. If you're running a business, it will never be perfect all of the time. And there's a lot of settling that you'll have to do with accepting things the way that they are. That aside, I do want to briefly talk about funding because I do realize that a lot of small businesses will create a business plan with the intention of showing it to prospective investors to try and attain funding. So, if you're going to create a business plan with this in mind, you will want to include somewhere in your plan how much funding that you're going to need. Um, I would say over the course of several years, don't just project out for the first 12 months, maybe project out for 3 to 5 years. God willing, Godspeed, your business makes it 3 to 5 years. And not only how much funding you need, but specifically what you're going to use it for. That's really important when an investor is considering whether or not they want to put up money for your business. And also, you're going to want to specify, like, is this a loan? Are you going to exchange some equity in return? Really get into the details and terms and in terms of what that funding request ultimately looks like. Really get into details about how you're going to use those funds. Are you going to use it to buy inventory? Are you going to use it to run social media ads? Are you going to use it to pay a salary for 12 months for your first employee? Really get into the weeds there. You might use it for equipment or bills. Just get strategic and detailed in terms of if you are asking someone to invest in your business, how those funds will be utilized. And I must say here, full transparency, I have bootstrapped every business. The only debt holder of Good Juju is Miss Sierra. There is not a single investor, there is not a single bank. It's just me. And if that's the route that you go, please be realistic, because if you're self financing your business, obviously, if you're not Gary Vee or Mark Cuban, you probably don't have infinite funds to just invest into your latest idea. And I know for a fact when I'm spending my money and not someone else's, I get really penny pinchy in terms of like not wanting to waste it. So if you're bootstrapping your business with your own funds, it's super important to be extra realistic, because at the end of the day, you are the person who will have to carry the burden of any financial mistakes, not to be negative.
I don't think that's negative. I think it's realistic, right? I think sometimes being realistic can feel uncomfortable for some of us. And so we feel like it's negative, but really it's just being honest. It's just being honest. And similarly, Sierra, for many of my businesses, and I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I've developed, I guess, now 6 brands in my 23 years of being an entrepreneur, and I bootstrapped all of them until 2019 when we built what was supposed to be our dream studio. Then we did go through a credit union to get assistance for that, but it is just as important, because even if you've got a bank backing you, you still got to pay them back, right? So you still have to be just as intentional and penny pinchy and all those things. And here again, even the best, most well laid plans don't always work out. I've mentioned this before, and I won't dwell on it because, same, I don't want to be negative, but we built what we thought was our dream studio in 2019. We had very detailed business plan that we had worked on for a couple of years. We hired people we trusted. We did all the things, and unfortunately, the building was built to be code deficient, and we didn't know that until after the fact. And it's been closed down since last July, and we're in the middle of a legal battle. So, all of these well laid plans can definitely go awry, but the more you plan, the better. Uh, do do think about, as you said, businesses rise and fall. There's seasons that are thin and thick. Over plan, overestimate for the thin times, so that there's less stress when they come, because they will come. It may not be as big of a crazy tragedy like I'm dealing with, and that's super unlikely and kind of a unique situation. But as you said, there are going to be ebbs and flows. There are going to be seasons where you are so busy, you don't know what to do with yourself, and there are going to be thin times where you feel like you are in the void. And so your persistency, consistency, that's where that begins to pay off, but also planning for those rainy days, planning for emergencies, planning for the thin times, fluctuations in the market, all of these things. If you plan ahead for, it isn't being negative, it's being honest and yeah, just setting yourself up for success.
Oh my goodness. I get sad every time I hear about your yoga studio that didn't come to fruition. And I truly hope that we can rewrite this story and give it a new ending through Elevate. And I'm really hoping that over this next few years, something new and even better will come to fruition in place of this yoga studio that unfortunately just did not make it to see the light of day. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes we have a few stumbles before we can be running top speed. um, One thing I wanted to mention as it relates to business planning, and this just relates to pricing and anyone selling a product, always remember it's easier to reduce the price of something than it is to increase the price of something. I will say, with inflation and everything else across the board, prices are rising, and we're seeing that for gas, we're seeing that for groceries, we're seeing that for services, we're seeing it for everything. And there are certain scenarios where, given the market or given the economy, you have to kind of just adapt and raise prices. But always know it's easier to reduce a price than it is to raise it. So if you're feeling on the fence about, is this too expensive? Did I make the price high and is that deterring people? It's easy to put it on sale. But if you try and tell someone something that was $50 is now 75 and there's no explanation for it, that might be a little tough. The other thing I want to mention is related to choosing partners to work with. If you have a business, it's likely that you're going to partner with a variety of other businesses to help you manage that business. It might be a payroll provider like ADP or Gusto. It might be a marketing service like these companies that offer text message marketing or email marketing, like Klaviyo or MailChimp. These are other businesses that we form business partnerships with so that we can use their services to better serve our customers. Something I've learned the hard way from personal experience is you really have to vet these partners. You cannot just trust a slide deck or a website. You have to get into the weeds with these people and ask the questions. I had an awful experience experimenting with a new text messaging service provider last year that resulted in me spending a ton of money on these text messages that ultimately, A, weren't generating much in sales, and B, I started to question toward the end if they were even collecting real phone numbers and if it was just bot phone numbers or fake phone numbers. I was like, dude, the way these texts are bouncing, like, are these even real people? Like, are they doing anything to confirm that these are real people? So, something else I want to mention is if you are going to work with another business to offer a service to your customers or stay in touch with them, really vet the partners, because there are a dozen different partners you could use to send emails to people. They all cost different things, they all have slightly different packages, but it's up to you to determine which of those providers best suits your needs. Don't feel rushed in to one of these relationships or commitments. And don't let these people smooth talk you, because they will smooth talk you.
That's 100% true. And I think also when you're vetting, it's like do your own research. When you are vetting these companies, look to other professionals in your field or other small businesses that you already have a connection to see what they have used and what they had a good experience with. I used Constant Contact for a gazillion years. And in the beginning, it was cost effective. My list grew to from zero to like 12,000 or something like that over the course of the years, and they would add new features or whatever it might be, and it got by the end to be quite expensive. And so be flexible too. You know, you might have established a good thing, but you're right, don't that's what their job is, right? Is to make that sale. And there are so the minute you open a new business, especially brick and mortar, I don't know about online or otherwise, but the minute you open a brick and mortar business, holy shit, the sales calls you get in a day and in a week. And you're 100% right. You have to really do your due diligence and make sure that same with credit card processing companies. Oh my God, they'll promise you the moon and they'll scam you. They will scam you. So you definitely, I think this is such a good point that I didn't even have on my notes or radar today. Do your due diligence, do your homework, and don't be afraid to, if you're not happy with the service or the way it's going, to pick up your business and move it elsewhere, to partner with someone else. Teamwork really does make the dream work. We have to collaborate in certain ways with other people, but yeah, it has to bring benefit to you and your business. And if something isn't right, don't you be afraid to use that voice and let them know. And if you have any trouble, I love telling those fuckers off. So you call me.
Oh my goodness. That's too funny. Yeah, don't be afraid to branch out and explore all your options. Don't feel like just because you've been working with a certain service provider for a period of time that you're stuck with them or married to them. Depending on how much you've built up with them, it might require some energy to move over to something else. But if it's causing you more stress than it is anything, it's probably worth taking the time to just move over. And that was kind of the realization I came to with our text message partner. It was just like, this is causing me more stress and causing me to spend more money than it's making. So this is probably not a good long-term investment for us for the time being. We are, oh my God, I cannot believe how quickly this hour has gone by. We are closing in on the last 10 minutes or so of this Twitter space. I would like to take a moment to just thank everyone who's been hanging out this entire time and just also welcome anyone who has a question or a comment, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business tip that we did not share, you are welcome to request the mic and come up and add to the conversation. One small note, this is not a shill space, so it's definitely not the appropriate environment to shamelessly promote whatever it is you have going on, but we would love to still hear about it if that makes sense. Anything you want to add before we close out in this next 10 minutes, Abby?
I wanted to pull up, I did look up the statistics of the number of businesses that fail. And it's not to be negative, it's again to be realistic, but I want to start with the reasons. The reasons small businesses fail are, there's a bunch of them, but not having a business plan is among the top reasons. And so it takes some time and some planning, and it seems tedious and it feels negative and it can feel like, oh, this is kind of raining on my parade. But if you want to succeed in the long haul, it really is crucial. So that's one of the reasons: lack of research, not having the funding that you need, poor marketing, failing to adapt. These things are reasons that businesses fail. And according to the BLS, the data shows that approximately 20%, so like 1 out of 5 new businesses fail in the first 2 years, 45% in the first 5, and this sucks, but 65% during the first 10 years. And so again, it isn't to discourage, it's to really drive home the point that if you love your idea enough and feel passionate enough, you've got to write a plan. And if you can get through all the reasons you shouldn't do a thing, really with a solid argument against all of those barriers to entry, then you move forward. And if you think it's discouraging, just wait till you open your goddamn doors, right? It's not for the faint of heart. Being a small business owner is the most rewarding thing, besides motherhood, is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. But it has been really an opportunity for growth. It has taught me so much, and man, it's hard stuff, right? But I have this, like, I don't ever want to go back and work for someone else again kind of feeling, even though maybe I will. But yeah, I think it can be such a rewarding thing, but don't overlook the importance of a plan. All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
Stay on your soapbox as long as you need to. I love all your tips. You have such a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. I also want to welcome Jana up to the stage. Happy to have a fellow Crystal Queen here. What do you have to add to our conversation, my love? Thanks for hanging out.
Hello, friends. Not too much to add, except to say you are both brilliant human beings, and the knowledge and the wisdom that you guys are giving to the collective right now, I'm excited for it to reach big markets and for the day that the two of you are like laughing all the way to the bank at the business that you two have created by accident, just by providing this content and this information to everybody. I'm so grateful to both of you for your friendship and for this wisdom. And I know that everybody in this space has been hanging on, with our butts on the edge of our seats, because I'm like, shit, I got to get my shit back in order, man. My business has been all over the place since we've been all over the place worldwide, and I'm just so grateful for a good place for grounding for this. And this has been like a really great opportunity to just come back to, what is necessary for growth and evolution in a business. And I just love you both.
I love the shit out of you, lady. You are invaluable to my own business. I have to say, if you don't have a psychic advisor as part of your business plan, you are doing it wrong. I didn't have Janice Stern the first 20 some years of my business, but I have her now in my back pocket and I ain't letting go. So you all should do the same. It's really been invaluable to have someone once a month to give me some great perspective, some insight, and having that advisor, that mentorship, someone that helps you keep your own mental health in check, that is something you should write into your business plan as well. So thank you for coming up here, Jana. I love you. I think you're amazing, and I'm so grateful to have you in my court. 100%.
Thank you so much, Jana. This is such a fun part of my week every Thursday afternoon, having this Twitter space with Abby. I seriously look forward to it. This was one of the more full rooms that we've had. So it's really interesting and exciting to see that everyone was energized to talk about business planning. We are definitely open to recommendations if there's anything specific that you would like Abby and I to talk about, but we have come up with our schedule for the month of September. We're going to be talking about breath work and meditation and yoga and digital marketing. We have like an awesome schedule for this month that I've posted. You can find in the media tab here on our Good Juju account. So, if there are no further requests for the mic or no other additions to the conversation, I am going to wrap this up and start to close out the space. I really enjoyed this today. If anyone has any specific questions based on anything that Abby or I recommended, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We will be back here next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for episode 6 of Mindful Business. And if you tuned in late or you missed the first 4 episodes, please head over to our YouTube, which you can find in our recent tweets, to check out these spaces uploaded to YouTube. Hope everyone has a lovely holiday weekend as we approach Labor Day. Thank you so much for your time and energy, and we will see you soon.
Bye, friends.